We talk about Denver. Like Denver, it's so high. It's the mile high city. Mexico City is about a mile and a half above sea level. It's 7,400. It's about 7,400 feet above sea level. And so from the news today, I'm here with a special guest, Tracy Collins. Tracy, can you introduce yourself and tell people who you are, what you do, and where they can find you on the internet?
Oh my gosh. So my name is Tracy Collins. What do I do? I'm a CEO of my own company. That's a major international company. Where they can find me on the internet, everything is like at Tracy Collins, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the things.
Okay. All right. And your YouTube channel is about?
It's about Black women who travel and who have designed their life to be able to do so. So because I own my own company, it allows me the freedom and flexibility to pick up my computer and go from anywhere. But I started in 2015 creating a life so I can be able to work from anywhere.
All right, well, you heard that. Go subscribe right now. Press pause. Go subscribe to Tracy's channel and then come back. Tracy is a very special guest because Tracy has a pre-existing condition that makes altitude sickness worse for her than it might be for some other people. And so I want to talk to someone who it's very serious for Tracy. And so we're going to talk about what that is. But first, let's back up a second and talk about why altitude sickness is an important thing to talk about in the city. Altitude sickness is not something that we talk a lot about in North America because a lot of our cities are not that high. South America has a number of really high cities. There are higher cities in Mexico, but they're not major ones, right? This is the largest, highest city in North America. So what you might feel here, you might not feel somewhere else. I just recorded a video about carbon monoxide poisoning and how the altitude plays with that as well, because it's all about the oxygen you're taking in, right? And how thin the oxygen is. So that's what happens with altitude sickness. The air is thinner, there's like less oxygen getting in, and that can impact your body in different ways. And so I want to talk to Tracy real quick about how that impacted her. So Tracy, tell us, when you came to the city, what was the first symptom that you had? How did you know that you were having symptoms at all?
For me, I noticed it right away. And because I have anxiety with flying, I thought it was like, okay, maybe I'm just coming down off of that. But it had to do with my shortness of breath. And I have to take that very seriously because if anything related to shortness of breath or heart palpitations, I'm immediately like, okay, taking an assessment of what's happening within my system. And so the entire ride from the airport all the way through, like I'm just like zoning out because I need to take some conscious deep breaths because my heart would not slow down, nor would the intake of breath be enough. So I really thought it was due to the anxiety from flying. But when it continued into the next day, it dawned on me that I had recently heard or read about the altitude level in Mexico City. And I immediately looked it up and it was said 7,200 feet above sea level. And I was like, this is what it is. And then Honey got sick the second day.
Okay, so you were feeling anxious. You were feeling, that fear of flying extended.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't feeling well. Honey wasn't feeling well. Was there? What did that look like when you guys were together?
So for me, it was the shortness of breath. I constantly had to like really take a lot of deep breaths, fill my lungs up with air. I didn't get any headaches. I wasn't dizzy, but it was like feeling like there was a brick on my chest. That was for me. With her, it was worse. She ended up having flu-like symptoms, again, which is very common for altitude sickness. And she ended up like throwing up, like, because you and I were trying to meet up, and I was like, we just need an extra day. So whatever she's experiencing could pass. And we thought it could possibly be COVID. So we brought some tests with us, for our travels, just to, just in case we needed to take a test. We brought the at-home test with us. She took a test, she was negative. And then that was around the time that I was putting everything together that this is altitude sickness. And it
Okay.
takes like 3 to 4 days for your body to get acclimated to the I guess the elevation levels.
Mhm. The thing you said about having a brick on your chest is the thing that I hear most frequently, that people feel like it's like they're like, I don't know, wearing like a shaper around their chest. Like it's really
Yeah.
hard to like expand and get the air that they need in. Is that, I haven't experienced that on land before, underwater I have, but I've experienced, was it painful when you were feeling it or was it just uncomfortable and scary?
It was tight. It was a
Okay.
very tight feeling, a feeling suppressed. For people who have heart conditions or respiratory issues, it's something that especially with the pollution levels in Mexico City. So not only are your oxygen is decreased, or your oxygenation is decreased, but also you're inhaling pollution
Right.
too. So you have to be very cognizant of how you inhale. But one of the things that works in your favor is the mask. Wearing mask
Okay.
actually works in your favor.
All right. So wearing the mask helps you. It's keeping some of the pollution out. It's helping you get like a little bit of the pure air in, hopefully.
Mhm,
Um, you do have a heart condition.
mhm.
So how did that impact your thoughts while you were on the ground?
Well, first of all, I made sure we had like travelers insurance that covered our medical coverage while we were in the country the entire 6 weeks. And I knew that the major cities that we were going to, we already identified the facilities, like medical facilities, in advance. So that was an issue. Now I have nails on. So one of the signs with my case is if my body isn't getting enough oxygenated blood, my fingertips start to turn blue. So I couldn't really tell, obviously, if that was happening. So whenever I felt my chest being restricted, I would stop. I would stop whatever I was doing, and I would lay down. I made sure immediately that I would address it until it passed, and it would take a
Okay.
while.
Okay. Um, what would you have liked to know about altitude sickness in Mexico City before you got here? What would have been helpful?
This conversation, if this conversation was readily talked about, then
Okay.
we would have been more like, oh, okay, so these are the symptoms that we need to look out for, like all the things. But because there was not any conversation about it, I didn't know.
Okay. So some of the symptoms talking about that are headaches, a feeling like you have a hangover, fatigue, sudden, woo, no, no, I can't read my own writing. Oh, sudden and extreme shortness of breath and a loss of appetite. So those are things that can happen, and vomiting, right?
So I
Any kind
never
of
had a
dizziness.
loss.
I've heard there's a lot of that you said.
I never had a loss of appetite in Mexico, period.
Oh, oh no, other people might have that. And it can be very serious. So some of the things you can do are take ibuprofen or motion sickness medication. Stop and rest frequently, like Tracy did. That's really great advice. Avoid strenuous activities, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm supposed to hop on, hop off bus today. I already bought a ticket. Lay your ass down, right?
Yeah.
Like lay down. You'll be all right. You do it tomorrow or don't do it at all. But what you don't want to do is get really, really sick here because it's vacation or you travel. Like you don't want to do this. And then if you're feeling like this already, avoid alcohol and smoking because those can make it worse. So you want to get pure oxygen. You want to lay down. You don't want to overexert your body. Um, when did those symptoms start going away for you and for Honey?
We got to Mexico City on a Monday, and I think by Thursday or Friday. Thursday, I started to feel better. Friday, she started to feel better, but mine would show up periodically. Hers did
Okay.
not. I mean, her flu-like symptoms went away and stayed away, but mine would show up every so often.
Okay. Um, I looked at some advice for hikers because they're going higher than us, right? Like, what do they say about this? Because they should know. And they say some of the really bad symptoms are delusions, inability to walk, and personality changes. So if you see someone, like, hopefully it's not impacting you so much that you're delusional. But if you're with people and they're like, get really cranky, right? They get that personality change. They get really cranky, or they seem like they're drunk when they're not drunk, sit them down if you can't, right? Make sure they're taking the time to take care of themselves, because this can be very serious. Like Tracy said, especially what it means is that your body's not getting enough oxygen, right? And when your body's not getting enough oxygen, the next thing it's going to impact is your brain. Not medical advice. We're not doctors, right? But it is something that you should go get checked out if it feels like it's serious. Like if your fingertips are turning blue, go ahead and go to the doctor. Go ahead and do that. Where else have you experienced altitude sickness, Tracy?
Nowhere.
Nowhere? Of course.
Of course, right? Of course, Mexico City, but nowhere else.
Of course. Your future home. Your future home. Speaking of which, minor plug, pause for the plug. This week, Stephanie and I and the Exodus Summit team are hosting a workshop for people who want to get residency in Mexico City. That is November 17th. Tracy has residency. I have residency. You can be in the country as long as we want, as little as we want. We can stay. We can go in and out freely whenever we want. And we're going to help people not just who want residency and want to come to Mexico City, but who want to go anywhere in the country. We're going to have resources for you. So you can get the information at exodussummit.com/Mexico. And if you are watching this after, you can buy the replay there as well. We're going to tell you about the things you need to know but aren't in any videos, and the things you need to know but aren't written down anywhere, because Tracy, it's some things. It's like a secret code, right? Like, it's like, and I don't think it's that people want to keep the information secret. I think it's just that there's so much information, and if you don't talk to the right person about the right thing or ask the right questions, you're going to miss it. So we're going to try to outline all of that. But back to altitude sickness. It didn't ruin your experience here. You're still thinking about making it your home.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Do you know if, because of your heart, there are any like long-term concerns about you living here, or no?
Well, that's something that we have taken into consideration, and we are taking it into consideration. Fortunately, like, Mexico City is a huge city, and it has, like, when they say Mexico City has everything you need, it really like has, it's like New York times 100, but with nice people. And like, I don't know, it has a small town feel to it, which was kind of confusing to me for such a large city. So, but just making sure to identify like great cardiologists in my case, because I have to have annual checkups with an echo and an EKG. I'm not on any kind of medication, so I want to keep it that way. So those would be things that we would take into consideration and have taken into consideration and talked about.
So some tips for you if you're coming to visit or to move into the city. My first one would be based on my own personal experience. It's a very high city, and so if you haven't gotten used to the altitude, and if you're only going to be here for a short time, don't stay in a high rise, right? If you think there's any concern, especially if you have any kind of breathing issues or heart issue or anything like that, anything where you think, anything we're getting a little bit less, you're already going to get a little bit less than the regular oxygen, right? Like, but don't go higher than you have to, right? Like, stay on some low floors. Find you a low floor somewhere and stay there if you have any concern about it, because you had this altitude sickness. Like, were you on a ground floor level, second, third? Where were you?
We were on I want to say we were on the second or third floor. I can't remember. We were on the third floor. So we weren't high. The building that we were staying in, I think there was only like 4 floors. So it wasn't too high.
Yeah. If you were a lot higher, who knows how that would have impacted you, right? So like, stay low if you're coming to the city and you have any of these concerns. What other advice would you give, Tracy?
Get a clean bill of health before you go. If you have any pre-existing conditions, make sure that you have traveler's insurance that covers medical stay. And then make sure that if you are going to Mexico City, know where your nearest medical facility is, just in case you need to go, and make sure you have your Google Translate. Like, you want to have the things already I's dotted and T's crossed when it comes to your any medical concerns that could be an issue.
I hear that the wrist motion sickness things can help. Motion sickness medication can help.
The patch.
The patch can help. And then don't be, especially if you're with other people, don't be afraid to say, I'm gonna sit this one out. I'm gonna go lay down, right? Lay down, lay down. I know one of you is gonna be like, yeah, I was in the city and I didn't lay down, I should lay down. I'm telling you now, just lay down. Just cut out that moment of I should have and just go lay down right now. Because when the minute you feel it, stop it in its tracks, because it can get really serious, right? It can get really serious. You don't want to be throwing up, because that ruins like that. I feel like when that happens to me, it ruins the day. Like the whole day is done. If I have thrown up, like day over. I'm just gonna be in bed.
Right? I had never seen Honey throw up until Mexico.
Ooh, and y'all been together for a while. This ain't new.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I think she threw up like 2 or 3 times
in the same day.
And this like within the span of like hours.
Oh, poor baby. Yeah, it's serious. Like when you start feeling those symptoms, it's serious. So, right. So if you are a Black woman who wants to live life on your own terms, travel around the globe while building your international company, go ahead and subscribe to youtube.com/Tracy Collins.
Yep, that's me. Right, TRACIE.
I'll drop it in the description so you have it below. Tracy, thank you so much for being a guest with me today and talking about this very serious thing.
I wish this conversation was available before we went. Now we know, and we're making it available for other people, but this is a necessary conversation. And I think more people, if they are aware of the symptoms, they'll realize that they are experiencing altitude sickness.
I think a lot of people have experienced it and just don't know.
Yeah.
They just don't know what it is. They just feel tired or, kind of sluggish and not realizing.
Have a headache, can't breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy. And thanks everyone for watching. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And until next time, we'll be back talking more things Mexico, more things career break, all of the stuff that I'm usually here talking about. Bye, y'all.